That, an early flood warning system designed to save the lives of thousands of people in the Everest region may no longer be working, Nepalese officials have admitted to the BBC after it was allowed to fall into a state of disrepair. The disclosure came after villagers in the local Sherpa communities told the BBC no inspection of the UN-supported project had been carried out for many years after the dangerous Imjar glacial lake was last drained in 2016.
And 1 year after the tragic attack in Pahalgam in occupied Kashmir, India would have liked to be living in a different global reality. It would have liked to have Pakistan globally isolated, and it would have liked to be exercising the prerogatives of a regional hegemon in South Asia. It would have liked to be celebrated as the world's biggest fighter of terrorism, even though, and as Pakistan's Information Minister Ataullah Tarar pointed out, it has not presented any solid evidence or proof regarding the Pahalgam incident, nor has it offered satisfactory explanations. None of these things has happened. And Pakistan is being celebrated as a peace broker in a gnarly conflict. India has become regionally sidelined in the midst of a major conflict in West Asia, and New Delhi's support for terrorist activity in Pakistan has not gone unnoticed. And so India is doing what India does best under Modi, pretending that it lives in the reality it desires rather than the reality that exists. Speaking on April 22nd, 2026, the anniversary of the attack, and BJP leaders spoke as if Operation Sindoor, launched without providing proof of an alleged Pakistan connection, was the best decision in India's history. And Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh came out with the sort of bluster typical of Indian foreign policy. He said, "If you look at the history of India to date, India has not attacked any country in the world from its own side. But the one who is powerful does not attack anyone. But if a neighbour tries to create trouble, then ... all neighbours are fine, only one is troublesome." He also insisted the Indian military had, because of Operation Sindoor, and become stronger than before. As in the case of allegations linking Pakistan to Pahalgam, he provided no proof. And Peshawar, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Chief Minister Mohammad Sohail Afridi on Friday warned of reassessing the provincial government's current approach and discontinuing cooperation with the federal government over delay in hearing of cases of PTI founder Imran Khan. If such trends persist, our provincial government may consider discontinuing the option of a boycott. The Chief Minister told a cabinet meeting. And leí este artículo en español. With just under 2 months to go before the 2026 World Cup, one of the tournament's host cities in Mexico is experiencing a worrying trend. And it is common knowledge among Ukrainian soldiers that anyone joining the military will, sooner or later, become a cat person. Felines are found in the most unlikely places on the front lines. In trenches, at checkpoints, in destroyed homes and at medical stabilization points, they are always looking for some warmth and a bit of food in exchange for cuddles and morale boosts.
That, Pronto, an Indian instant house help startup, is finalizing a funding round led by tech investor Lashi Groom that would value the fast-growing company at about $200 million after investment, TechCrunch has learned. That, the deal is expected to bring in about $20 million in fresh capital and would mark a sharp jump from the $100 million valuation at which the company raised $25 million in a Series B round led by Epic Capital in early March, doubling its valuation in a matter of weeks. Two people familiar with the matter. That, over most of the past year, Pakistan's role in US-Iran diplomacy remained quiet, familiar and carefully limited, functioning as a channel passing messages and keeping lines of open when direct contact between two global adversaries was politically difficult. For the larger part, Islamabad was not setting the agenda, only facilitating communication. That changed at the end of February, when the outbreak of all-out war altered ground realities.
And there are roads that are inconvenient, and then there is University Road, a legendary stretch of mostly dirt, rocks and some tarmac that seems determined to test not just one's patience, but endurance, judgment and at times even sanity. A recent journey along this arterial route left me with the unmistakable impression of having entered a war-ravaged landscape where the casualties are not counted in numbers but in hours lost, nerves frayed, and routines disrupted. And the United States is discussing currency swap lines with other countries, including Gulf and Asian partners, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said on Friday, after a number of allies sought help in dealing with fallout from the Iran war. Bessent has not identified the countries making such requests, but he said the swap lines would be helpful to both the US and other nations. And OpenAI CEO Sam Altman has apologized over his company's failure to warn authorities about the concerning online activities of a teen who went on to commit one of Canada's worst mass shooting. Jess Van Rootselaar, 18, went on a shooting spree in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia on February 10, killing 8 people. And United States envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner will travel to Pakistan on Saturday for talks with Iran. The White House has said while Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has arrived in Islamabad, the visit comes amid deadlocked negotiations between the US and Iran, with uncertainty lingering for days over whether Tehran will return to the table. And US Gencane claims 34 ships turned around, but Hapag-Lloyd says one ship made it through Strait. EU leaders meet in Cyprus to find swift resolution to shipping crisis. Neutral Switzerland set to reopen embassy in Tehran waits Paris. And even as renewed engagement between Iran and Pakistan over dialogue with the US sent out positive signals, Europe and the rest of the world appears anxious for a swift and diplomatic end to the war that has ravaged the Middle East and crippled global shipping, causing a fuel crunch across the globe.
That Islamabad. In a surprise move, the Shehbaz Sharif government on Friday increased the prices of both petrol and diesel by 26.7 cents per litre, with immediate effect for the week ending May 1. That passing on the impact of global prices during the last fortnight, while also seeking to raise revenues in the final months of the fiscal year under commitments with the International Monetary Fund, IMF. That the IMF's executive board is expected to approve in the first half of May the disbursement of more than $1.2 billion under 2 ongoing programs.
And multi-agency report says over 9-meter Pakistanis face crisis conditions. Another 1.7 million in the more severe emergency category. Notes devastating monsoon rains, severe flooding wiped out crucial cropland and livelihoods. Warns global hunger remains at critical levels amid conflict, drought, aid cuts. Outlook for 2026 remains bleak. Islamabad. And Pakistan remains one of the 10 fragile countries where global acute food insecurity is most concentrated, according to a UN-backed report released on Friday. And as intensifying climate extremes and persistent economic challenges continue to strain the nation. And it's become a joke through gritted teeth these days in EU circles that whenever leaders meet, as they did these last 2 days in Cyprus, expecting to discuss practicalities and such as the new EU budget, they get railroaded by yet another crisis. There is the ongoing energy crisis provoked by the US-Israel war on Iran, Russia's aggression in neighbouring Ukraine now in its 4th year. And this Friday morning, and souring relations between Europe and the United States, along with a potentially devastating defence impact, reared its Medusa-like head again. And the recent surge in fuel prices due to the war in Iran has spurred demand for electric vehicles around the world, and Chinese car makers are making the most of the opportunity. China is the world's top producer of EVs, and while its manufacturers remain largely shut out of the major car market of the United States, they are benefiting from an uptick in interest and orders via dealerships across Asia and elsewhere. And the National Database and Registration Authority, NADRA, has introduced an automated system aimed at improving public access to identity card services, allowing citizens to complete applications through self-service kiosks. The facility has been launched at the NADRA Mega Centre in Lahore, where 22 counters have been designated for the new system. And The Lahore Development Authority, LDA, has introduced a new policy aimed at providing relief to property owners in cases related to access area penalties. Under the revised policy, penalties will now be calculated based on the property rate at the time of plot allotment instead of the current district collector DC rates. And Punjab's provincial cabinet has approved a significant increase in the cost of obtaining a domicile certificate, raising the fee by 175% as part of a broader move toward a fully digital and paperless system. Under the revised structure, the total fee has increased from Rs 200 to 550, including 200 as the base fee, Rs 300 for the e-affidavit, and Rs 50 as a service charge. And Punjab's educational boards have increased the number of exam opportunities for students who fail, raising the limit from 4 to 6 attempts. Under the new policy, students will now be allowed to take exams up to 6 times within a 4-year period. This change will be implemented starting from the 2024 annual examinations. And authorities in Sindh have intensified enforcement against tenants and landlords who fail to complete mandatory registration, warning that non-compliance could result in arrest and imprisonment. Under the new measures, living in a rented property without proper registration may lead to serious legal consequences. Both tenants and property owners could face jail time if they do not comply with registration requirements. And the Overseas Pakistanis Commission, OPC, has announced a series of measures to address the problems faced by Pakistanis living abroad, including the establishment of special courts and facilitation desks at airports. Under the new plan, separate courts will be set up in every district to handle cases specifically related to overseas Pakistanis. And police in the Peruvian capital of Lima have raided a home belonging to the former head of its national election agency amid growing frustration in the aftermath of the country's presidential election. As of Friday, results still had not been finalized for the presidential race, which took place on April 12. And Silicon Valley tends to tolerate a certain amount of founder exaggeration when pitching investors, often dismissing it as part of selling a vision. But some choices cross the line and can lead to jail time for founders and scandal for their investors. A case in point is Joseph Sandberg, whose once high-flying fintech startup Aspiration Partners was backed by a roster of tech celebrities, including former Microsoft CEO and current Clippers owner Steve Ballmer. In August 2025, Sandberg pleaded guilty to 2 counts of wire fraud and defrauding multiple investors and lenders, the US Department of Justice said in a press release. Each count carries a maximum sentence of 20 years in prison.
The foreign ministers of Pakistan and 7 other Muslim-majority countries on Thursday issued a joint statement rejecting any attempts to alter the historic and legal status quo in Jerusalem and its Islamic and Christian holy sites. The ministers condemned what they described as repeated violations of the status quo at the city's holy sites by Israeli authorities. They specifically criticized continued incursions by Israeli settlers and extremist ministers into Al-Aqsa Mosque, Al-Haram al-Sharif, carried out under Israeli police protection, as well as the raising of the Israeli flag within its courtyards.
And a court in Kosovo has sentenced 2 Kosovo Serbs to life imprisonment and another to a 30-year jail term for taking part in what it described as a terrorist attack in September 2023. The men were found guilty of violating Kosovo's constitutional order and inciting terrorist activities. Prosecutors have charged 45 people in total, but they believe most of them are in Serbia and unlikely to be handed over. And Sam Altman, the head of OpenAI, has formally apologized to the community of Tumbler Ridge, BC, after a mass shooting in February. And he admitted his company did not alert authorities to the shooter's disturbing online conversations with its AI chatbot, even after staff flagged the account internally. And I am deeply sorry that we did not alert law enforcement to the account that was banned in June. Altman wrote in a letter dated April 23, an address to the community of Tumbler Ridge. While I know words can never be enough, and I believe An apology is necessary to recognize the harm and irreversible loss your community has suffered. And former Barcelona defender Hector Bellerin snatched a late point for Real Betis in a 1-1 La Liga draw against Real Madrid to do his former side a favour in the Spanish title race. Alvaro Arbeloa's Madrid seemed set to chop down Barca's lead on Friday, but the Catalans sit provisionally 8 points ahead of Madrid after Bellerin cancelled out Vinicius Junior's opener.
That Israeli forces have killed 12 Palestinians in attacks throughout Gaza. Medical sources in the enclave tell Al Jazeera as Israel continues its daily violations of the ceasefire struck last year. An Israeli attack on a police vehicle on Friday killed at least 8 people, including 3 civilian bystanders in Khan Yunis. A separate attack in Gaza City also killed 2 police officers.
And Cohere, the Canada-based enterprise AI unicorn, announced Friday that it would merge with the Germany-based enterprise AI company Aleph Alpha. The deal, which has yet to close, will value the newly formed company at $20 billion, the FT reported. Schwartz Group, one of Aleph Alpha's top backers, will also invest $600 million in Cohere's Series E round, which is expected to close later this year, CNBC reported.